Hi, I'm Gary Francione. In my last thought for the day, I talked about animal welfare reform campaigns. Now I want to talk for a few minutes about single issue campaigns and why, as abolitionists, we should reject them. Single issue campaigns, like animal welfare reform campaigns, basically necessarily promote animal exploitation. What do I mean by that? Well, think about it. Let's look at a single issue campaign. For example, the campaign against foie gras or the goose liver product that many advocates reject. Now, in order to have a campaign like that, you need to have a coalition of people who agree that eating goose liver, or that particular sort of goose liver, is bad. But these are people who otherwise exploit animals and think that it's perfectly fine to exploit animals. They eat beef, they eat chicken, they eat fish, they eat eggs, they eat dairy. But they think that foie gras is bad and that it is somehow distinguishable from the things that they consume. So you end up with this coalition of people who think that some forms of animal exploitation are good and other forms of animal exploitation are not, and that they will unite against the one that is bad. But this then sends the message that other forms of animal exploitation are good. That sends the wrong message. Whatever single issue campaign you focus on, it's always the same. So, if you have a campaign against the eating of dogs in Korea or China, you're basically involved, and that campaign is notorious for involving people who eat all sorts of meat and all sorts of other animal products, but who think that eating dogs is problematic. Well, again, you're sending the message that people who eat dogs are morally worse than the people who eat cows or pigs or chicken or fish or dairy or eggs, and they're not. So the problem with animal welfare, with single issue campaigns, it's also a problem with animal welfare campaigns, but in a slightly different way. The problem with single issue campaigns is that they require coalitions of people who exploit animals and who are united in targeting something that they designate as worse than other things, and that the other forms of exploitation are good. They're okay. They're not going to be challenged. They're not going to be attacked. Indeed, I mean, look at the anti-fur campaign, one of the longest running single issue campaigns in the history of the movement. All right, there is no moral distinction between fur and leather and wool and whatnot. So, but the fur campaign has been problematic, not only because it involves sending the message that fur is somehow worse than wool or leather, and they're okay. They're okay. Fur is a problem. The anti-fur campaign has had the additional problem of being sexist. It has been a relentlessly sexist, misogynistic campaign, and so that's an additional problem. But and these campaigns often, single issue campaigns, often end up discriminating against particular groups of people. The anti-fur campaign against women, the campaigns about eating dogs and cats are incredibly ethnocentric and xenophobic, and all this anti-Asian nonsense that you see animal advocates spouting. The killing of dolphins in Taiji, again, an occasion for a lot of really horrible things to be said about the Japanese. I mean, is the slaughter of dolphins in Taiji morally justifiable? Of course not. Is it any different from what we're doing, what we do, what we non-Japanese people do? And the answer is nope. We're all in this together, as it were, in terms of, when we talk about animal exploitation. And these single issue campaigns generally involve coalitions of, as a matter of fact, not generally, they always involve coalitions of people, many of whom not only exploit animals but defend exploiting animals, and then they single out this one thing as being morally unacceptable, and by implication, that the other forms of exploitation are morally fine. I mean, they're just fine. And so I think that single issue campaigns send out the wrong message. We live in a world of limited time and limited resources. If we really want to change the way people think, we need to get to the core issue, and that is what people are eating. Veganism is certainly not just a matter of what people eat. It's a matter of what they wear, what they use, what sorts of, and the way that they consume animals as commodities. But the bottom line is nothing changes until people stop eating them. And once they see that they can no longer eat them, then for moral reasons, everything changes. So, let's focus on the real issue here, which is the consumption of non-human animals, the commodification of non-human animals. These campaigns are great fundraisers for the groups, but they have nothing to do with making anything better for animals or changing or shifting the paradigm. They don't. They keep the paradigm exactly where it is by reinforcing the notion that some forms of animal exploitation are worse than others, and those others are just fine. Thank you very much. Please go to the website, abolitionistapproach.com or howdoigovegan.com, and you can read more, or come to the Facebook page. Thank you.